A lot of interesting stuff to discuss today. I'll be joined by Charles later tonight. He's back in his new home of Malaysia. It was great to see him, wasn't it? But lots to discuss about the Charlie Kirk assassination and the ongoing crowdsourced investigation, not just on Crowdsourced the Truth. I mean, I think a lot of people would acknowledge that they engage in crowdsourced investigative journalism. You know? People put out videos, they get input from the public, or tweets, posts on X, whatever, you know, all kinds of different stuff. And this information comes to them. Open source intelligence information. It's very powerful. Very powerful. So a lot of people also know, it's getting windy. A lot of people also know that I had recently initiated an evidence bounty. And I think some people were maybe confused by that, thought I was just paying for evidence. The stated purpose on the terms of service, which I think is clearly stated, certainly no one has to participate, and if you find anything about the terms and conditions or anything I say to be vague, you can ask me to clarify, or you can choose to not participate. But people can go to crowdsourcethetruth.org and read all about this. This is the evidence bounty. It's a public crowdsourced investigation. It's up to $3,370 if someone can disprove my thesis with a scientific counter thesis backed by evidence, not just guesses. And of course, there's going to be a lot of disagreement about this, which is why I've laid out, or I should say I could expect a lot of disagreement about this, which is why I've laid out those terms and conditions, because nobody has to participate. But this is my offer, and if you choose to participate, either as someone who is funding the evidence bounty, please read that, or as someone who wants to try to claim the evidence bounty, there are terms and conditions that are dictated by the maker of the author. Not every schmuck who comes along and wants to participate. If you don't like the terms, don't get involved. We recently had somebody become involved who still seems not satisfied with the terms. I thought I had reached an understanding with that person in a private conversation we had on the telephone later the same day after he had submitted evidence and claimed, here's the evidence, it's verifiable, give me the money. Now he felt that it was unclear that in addition to me saying that the evidence had to be verifiable, that it would also be verified. Now, even if that was unclear, again, the stated condition that it is my sole professional discretion that determines, that means he doesn't get to argue with my opinion. If he wants to, he can try to do that in court, and he can say that I have somehow done something that is a civil tort or a violation of whatever it is he might choose to argue. But what he's choosing to do is to argue in the public opinion, the court of public opinion, which is also okay, except he's doing it in a very disingenuous way. What is going on here? Vikings. What is this? Barbarian. What's going on?
Clash of the Clan. Clash of the Clan look-alike with a chance to potentially win $10,000.
Look-alike for this guy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Clash of the Clans. I think it's a video game. Oh, this guy looks just like him. You guys win.
With 10 grand.
I don't think I look like the guy, though.
Oh, you don't have to. If you stand here long enough, the beard will come.
Got it. So there you go. Those guys have some sort of competition going on. I'm sure there are terms and conditions. You can't just go up there and demand they give you the money because you've decided you've met the requirements of whatever it is they're trying to do. But anyway, back to this person. because I thought we had reached an understanding as to why he failed to disprove my thesis. He thought because he had presented a video that was 30 frames per second, and I had been saying, well, what we see in this video indicates that it was photographed at 240 frames per second. It's true that I've now learned that that was incorrect, but the evidence has sharpened the hypothesis. It's an HDR Dolby Vision video shot on the iPhone, which uses another mode of the 240 hertz operation of the image sensor. So technically, it may have been in some way shot at 240 frames per second. Not necessarily individual frames that were stored in the phone to be played back in the slow motion mode. But in other words, we now know, we have this evidence. I've posted it. It's a Dolby HDR video. We'll come back to that very disingenuous individual in a minute. I just want to talk about what we're learning from the evidence and why this evidence bounty has proven to be such a useful, it's working even better than I thought. Now, it's coming under attack as well, which I should have anticipated, but let's keep talking about it. So the thumbnail today shows this guy in the upper left there. What I've done is I've taken frames from his own video, which he released publicly when he gave it to somebody who gave it to me. And I've put it on YouTube. People can watch it on YouTube. But that's frames from the video. You can look at that guy. Here, if you go to my YouTube channel, Crowdsourced the Truth 11, because social engineers like the very jackass I'm talking about have worked so hard to destroy my ability to do journalism on social media. But click on the videos tab and it's right there. Charlie Kirk, Assassination Evidence, Original iPhone, Dolby Vision HDR. You might say to yourself, I don't want to play the whole thing because it's, you know, you get a sensitive content strike, but you got to be signed in to your YouTube account to look at that, because I posted it as sensitive content for people over 18 only. If I didn't do that, they ding it, and they don't like it when you post something and don't tell people it's for adults over 18 only. It shows the full event, the murder of Charlie Kirk, and then that guy turns the phone around. People are running for their lives, and he turns the phone around on himself. I made a video of that. Let's look at it for a second. It's quite weird. I slowed it down here. It's only a few frames. But we see his face. He's making a weird face. Now remember, I had that phone call with Samir Masi where he told me over the phone, in the process of trying to induce me into sending him $250 by Venmo, Samir Masi said that's his video, that he recorded it. So that's a deception. And again, I'm not an attorney, but that sure sounds like a fraudulent inducement to me. Over the phone. Is that wire fraud? To try to get me to send him money over the internet? I don't know, it seems, and he's communicating with me over TikTok. He's a very risk-prone, kind of stupid guy, Samir Masi. Let me adjust the microphone so that the wind is perhaps less problematic. That should be better. So anyway, who is that guy? He doesn't look like Samir Masi to me. He looks quite a bit different. That's why I've juxtaposed the two of them, images of them, right here in the thumbnail. Looks like two different guys to me. The guy in the middle there, that's Samir Masi. The guy on the left, I mean, look at that, they got a different complexion. Granted, it's different lighting, but different color eyes, different color hair, different shaped nose, different shaped mouth. It's a totally different guy. Not Samir Masi at all. And in fact, I do think, now that we've got a clear picture of this guy, I think we've seen other images of that person standing in the crowd at approximately where we would presume that Dolby HDR video was recorded. And in that image, it didn't look like Samir Masi. People might remember that Samir Masi lied to ABC News Australia, and then to me, he said he was outside recording that video, gave this whole lengthy story about a pizza party, but then he had this video on his Facebook page of him inside the building, quite surprised to learn that someone had been shot.
Go, 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 go. Go, go, go. Sir, go. Run. Please go. Wait, wait, wait. Go, go, go. Sir.
Get out.
What's happening though?
Someone shot.
Someone's...
He's confused. He's surprised to learn that someone has been shot. And then separately, look at this.
It's okay.
We've got
Oh
this
my God.
video.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Anybody see the shooter?
No, I didn't see him. I don't see anyone down. We're good. We're good.
This is the Dolby HDR shooter. There's his voice. Sounds totally different. He doesn't see the shooter. He's talking. We see his arm in the frame. Doesn't sound like Samir Masi. Who is this guy? Why are so many people lying about this 30 frame per second, perhaps 8 sub frames per 1/30th of a second interval, used to create a radiance map that's then tone mapped into each frame of an HDR video? So what we've got now is that the person who provided that evidence, who still hasn't provided a counter thesis that would refute my thesis, he hasn't provided that. He's just focusing his attention on trying to, debunk individual elements of what I'm saying. Arguably, that could be a way to disprove the thesis, but I do believe I've said in there that you need to present a stronger thesis that I'm going to integrate. That's the purpose of the evidence bounty. I mean, even if you prove, I'm not saying that I've proven that this is what's happened. I'm saying this is the prevailing thesis right now, and until somebody has a better one, this is winning. And a lot of people have agreed with that. Now, we can adjust little parts of it as we get more evidence and learn more about what's going on. I think the whole reason I did this is because I think most people agree that what the FBI has told us about a .30-06 rifle causing that injury, nobody believes that. So let's call that one of the weakest theses. I think the exploding microphone is equally weak. We don't have evidence that the microphone exploded. It appears on his shirt elsewhere. I think the whole entire notion that he was shot from the front falls apart because we have no exit wound. We've seen no exit wound in the rear. We've seen test after test. I saw some guy who was shooting a pork shoulder strapped to a 2-liter bottle of Coke and a steel plate. And the rifle rounds went right through the steel plate. So nobody believes that Charlie Kirk's spine stopped the bullet. Now, I did get another interesting piece of input from someone who's not seeking to refute the theory. He's just doing his own little research, and he found this. This is a guy named Chris Clark who says that he thinks 3 compressed air gun shots were fired. Now, this is an interesting wrinkle on what I'm saying. He also somehow concludes that it's 500 feet per second, but he's saying that the 3 pellets that we see, the 3 dots, the 3 projectiles, what I'm saying are projectiles captured in 1/240th of a second intervals, however that occurred, either through the subsampling of the HDR process in the phone, which is unknown. But that's how I got to it. So even if that is shown to be wrong, it doesn't refute the overall thesis that he's shot from behind. What Mr. Clark there is saying is that there are certain type of PCP air guns that can rapid fire. And he thinks it's 3 shots fired in succession. And that's why it looks like it's moving in reverse. I mean, again, if you were able to see them in super slow motion, they would still appear to be moving forward if we had, say, 10,000 frames a second or something like that. But item or items moving towards Charlie Kirk appear to be moving away from him, even under this gentleman's newer thesis or theory. He hasn't classified it as a thesis, he just put up that tweet. But even under his theory, if he's correct, it's the same sort of temporal aliasing artifact that I'm talking about, something that looks like it's moving in the opposite direction that it's actually moving, is made to look that way because of the technology that's recording it. So again, we've got this guy, Tyler, who's trying to pigeonhole my every word and play with the semantics to, catch me in an incorrect statement. He took a recording of a phone call, a 1 hour and 40-minute extemporaneous phone call, and he ran it through AI, prompting the AI to find false statements. Now, the way AI works is a probability algorithm where it finds the most probably accurate answer. And I recently heard a video from some AI developers talking about how OpenAI and others are trying to combat this problem of hallucination, something that is well known. They even disclaim their own software saying, hey, AI can be wrong, make sure you check the work and don't rely on this for a final thing. AI works in very specific ways. And one of the most important things about being an expert computer user of any software or hardware is understanding how computers fail. Because you still need to use your discernment to assess the output of a computer. And the point is, if you just take my phone call, which I'm trying to make analogies and explain things to humans, and particularly in the case of Tyler, ignorant humans who are ignorant of a large body of knowledge that is required to understand what I'm talking about. HDR, imaging, MPEG encoding, temporal aliasing, limitations in the technology of digital and motion picture imaging. And because he lacks that, I was sometimes speaking in analogies and generalities and talking about things in a way that I had hoped a human might understand. And it's vastly different than how I would choose the language and parse my words. That girl was wearing a practically transparent shirt and no bra. I should have asked her what she thought of the assassination. Point is, I would speak much differently and prompt an AI much differently to get to the right answer than I would explain something to a person. So, by the way, even if this guy went into court with an expert witness who said Jason is wrong, there's no possibility on earth, no unique circumstance that could be arranged where MPEG could fail in this way, I don't think you could find a reasonable or responsible expert who would say that, because in general, engineers and people like that don't speak in absolutes. They would probably say, even if it's a very, very small probability, that they can't rule out the possibility that it might happen. I presume. We'd have to ask them. But the point is, even if you got an expert witness in court, because Robert Kennedy has said this, he's been in tons of cases where both sides have two experts that are equally impressively credentialed, and they totally disagree with each other's assessments. So even if he was able to get an expert to say that I'm wrong, it still wouldn't matter in the context of this challenge. And that's not to say that, oh, Jason's never going to pay out anyone. That wasn't the purpose of it. The purpose of it was I was so confident in this, and not just from this one video. It was from a totality of evidence, other angles that seemed to show something happening at the back of his head before anything happens in the front of his neck. The lack of transparency from the FBI, the lack of credibility in the explanations we've gotten from them and the evidence that they've released, all of that conspired for me to arrive at this thesis. And these guys just seem super duper focused in messing with me and messing with this footage. I first became fascinated with this particular Dolby Vision HDR clip because it arrived at 20 frames per second, which was super weird, and it arrived at 30 frames per second at very, very low bit rate. It just seemed to me like someone was trying to hide something within the evidence. People have said, oh, everybody's got these expensive 4K phones and iPhone 16s that make great looking HD and 4K video. Why does all the video look so bad? It's an excellent question. And now we've gotten to a very, very good version of the video. I found something else in the video, the 10-bit HDR video. Now when I'm showing it to you here, it's no longer 10-bit. It's been tone mapped from the original 10-bit file to an 8-bit file so I can transmit it to you over all these normal things. If you go to that YouTube page, YouTube has a way of supporting 10-bit files. That's why it said 1080p HDR. But anyway, let's look at this. I seem to have found more drones, or at least more angles on the same drone. Look at that.
It's okay. You don't have to.
That right there. I think we've got one of the best images. That one. This doesn't look like a bird to me. It's not flapping its wings. It looks like a drone. And we really don't have too many other examples of birds flying around within that quad. There was one, but it flies right into a tree. I don't know if birds are circling over human chaos without visibly flapping their wings like that. And we get an approximate estimation of the size and distance and location of that thing because it passes in front of that one building. It's super interesting. So, oh yeah, there was something else I wanted to tell everybody about Chris, what was that guy's name with the Twitter advice on the air guns. It led me to this guy's channel. This is Atmotac Outdoors, and this guy is an enthusiast with the PCP guns. He's hunting with them and doing all kinds of things, testing different types of bullets and everything like that. Look at this video. He's got a silencer.
It makes you cry.
Isn't that really super quiet? So, I mean, again, the point is, I'm not saying I've proven that this has happened. I'm saying all the other theories that we've heard seem stupid and incorrect to me. It's not a bullet coming from the front that bounced off of a bulletproof vest that he doesn't seem to be wearing. It's not his necklace flipping around and stabbing him in the neck. Maybe the necklace flew off. I don't know. I haven't really thoroughly evaluated that. But the notion that a supersonic round creates a high-speed cavitation event that expands his neck, and the energy from that expansion transfers to the necklace, transfers to the pendant, which stabs him in the neck and creates that serious wound where people who are saying there's not a lot of blood haven't looked at the same videos that I've looked at, because to me, it looks like there's an extremely large amount of blood pouring out of his neck as soon as he's shot. It goes down the side of his shirt. If you look at that whole Dolby clip, you know, it's 2 minutes and 11 seconds or something like that. You see a lot of blood comes out. Then he's laying on the ground, they pick him up, and certain people have asked me, why is there no blood when they take him to the van? I can't answer that. We would have to ask a doctor. Maybe, I don't know how long it takes for blood to stop flowing out of a wound like that. Or if you take the person and fold them and hold their head up, if it now pools up somewhere else in the body. I don't know. I can't answer that. That's a lot of questions that I just don't know the answer to. I'm just trying to focus on what's going on in this video and if he was in fact shot from behind. And again, I think I've seen a lot of evidence that supports the theory that he was. Frankly, all the weird behavior around this video is itself more evidence that there's something there. Because remember, I don't know this guy, Blake Bednarz. I never contacted him. I didn't start looking at his X account. and getting into whatever it was that he was looking at and trying to counteract every single thing that he said. It appears that that's what he was doing with me. I got in touch with Adam Bartholomew after I saw his lengthy video on his Life is Driving YouTube channel. Had an interesting conversation with him about what I thought was a Bluetooth low energy exploit. Then Cullen brings me a video about this ISR jet. I didn't know anything about it until Cullen told me about it. Turns out Blake made that video. How did Blake know about that jet? Has he ever answered that? Is he such an aviation expert that he doesn't even know how to pronounce Bombardier? But he knows to look for jets like this? It's strange. I find it strange. Then, after I continued to investigate Adam Bartholomew's live stream getting cut out, which I immediately thought might have been due to a Bluetooth low energy exploit, because I had recently been subjected to what I thought was a Bluetooth low energy exploit. That's a theory too. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was something completely different. Maybe it was a coincidence that I was razzing the cops and a kid comes up to me and the live stream stops by crashing something on my phone. And the diagnostic log in the phone says somebody force quit the app. Maybe that was a coincidence, but nobody has disproven my theory that that kid did something to the phone that caused it to crash. Somebody did point out that the airborne exploit identified by Oligo IT had been patched by the time it happened to me, but that doesn't mean that someone didn't find a new exploit that was a different way in, that Oligo hadn't identified but did the same thing. In fact, I think that's likely. So again, you can prove that some particular detail of what I'm saying isn't fully correct, but it doesn't disprove the thesis. Let me go to another nitpicky detail that the disingenuous person who lured me into an X space to talk about this evidence under the pretense that everybody wants to get to the truth and talk about this evidence with Jason, and then switched it around to insulting me and talking about things that aren't related to this evidence. That person said, oh no, I ask AI and it doesn't say that 8 images are used in HDR imaging. Well, first of all, if you dig deeper on the AI on that and even just ask it, do you know for sure or are you just guessing? Did you get that from an Apple patent or some document that describes exactly how the HDR process works in an Apple phone to create this Dolby Vision HDR image? It will say no. I've asked it. That's not published by Apple. Now, while it might be correct that 8 is a lot of images to use for an HDR radiance map, there are some that are made with 30. I've told everybody. I know that guy, Paul Debevik. I haven't spoken to him in a long, long time, but you can do a lot of things with radiance maps, and exactly how they're made, it's determined by whoever created that software, and we just don't know. Let's say it's using only 4. I'm talking about the Apple video format, the Dolby Vision HDR format, where we have a 30 frame per second video that I'm saying that dot is frozen because it's sampling subframes, let's call them, 8 times per video frame. That gets us to our 240 hertz. I came to that because we know the phone sensor can operate at 240 pictures per second, whether it uses those to make frames in a high-speed video or for processing for an HDR video is dependent on the mode that you have the phone in. Let's say I'm wrong about that particular detail. Let's say it's not using 8. What if it's using 4 exposures to make the HDR? We know it's using more than 1. I don't think it's using only 2. So what if it's using 4? Where in that 240 hertz cycle of the phone, it's expose, integrate, expose, integrate, expose, integrate, expose, integrate. That might actually make sense. So once again, this new information, this new evidence, it's only sharpened the hypothesis because there's certain things about it that we can't know. Apple doesn't want to tell you how their HDR process works, but thinking about it more, it does make sense that perhaps half of the time. It's going to take more processing to integrate HDR images together than it would to just dump frames to an MPEG stream for a high-speed 240 frame per second video. So it might only use half the time exposing the sensor and half the time integrating those sub-frames. It's still 240 cycles per second, and the dot that I'm looking at would have been captured in 1/240th of a second. That's the essence of the thesis. It's not about struggling with every semantic definition of every word I'm saying and proving one word wrong. That doesn't disprove the thesis or give us a stronger counter thesis. That proves that there's a collection of people who are very focused on giving me problems. And that seems to be Blake and Tyler and all their friends who like to sit around on X live streams, X spaces, where Tyler's very own AI was failing badly last night. It answered questions completely wrong. It couldn't hear people. The notion that you would think that just feeding some conversation someone had into an AI and having that AI or 2 or 5 AIs say this is wrong has proven me wrong is false. And I come back to the terms and conditions. Even if you consider that not false, I consider it false. And this is my challenge. He didn't have to enter. He could have asked me, hey, if I put every single word you say through an AI and it says a single thing is wrong, do I get the money? I would have said no. Don't participate. No one's forcing anyone to participate. This whole thing is completely voluntary. And I'll have to fix this when I get back to the apartment, but I just noticed that it looks like right now it's possible that the PayPal part of it has disappeared. I see the now payments thing, but if anyone wants to contribute to the evidence bounty, which has already borne fruit, whoops, I just hit the wrong video, but we can look at Chris Clark's video again. If you have any problem using PayPal to increase the bounty, if that's what you'd like to do, you can also just go to paypal.me/crowdsource the truth. And it's clearly stated in there, if by November 4th, a stronger counter thesis has not been presented, I am going to keep this money. So people who are boosting the bounty are doing it, I presume, because they like Crowdsource the truth, they agree with my thesis, and they want to see if there's someone out there who really knows what they're talking about and can disprove what I'm saying and say, no, Jason, that's not the way MPEG bidirectional temporal prediction works. In other words, if they had pointed out that I misunderstood something about that technology, then maybe they'd have something. They could say, no, you've just said it does something that it doesn't do, but that's not correct. I'm saying the bidirectional prediction algorithm that looks ahead one frame, back one frame, one or more frames, that is being confused by the fact that it's trying to determine the proper motion of this item that I say is moving towards Charlie Kirk, but because there are only 3 still images of it, it's insufficient data for it to make an accurate prediction. And I thought of something else yesterday. The first and the third dot, whichever you think is which, both appear over essentially black backgrounds. One over the guy's hair and one over a shadow just behind Charlie Kirk. The background behind the almost white, what I say is a projectile, is almost completely black. The intermediate position of the dot appears over a medium gray wall. And I asked AI a series of questions. I even loaded in the frames. And I said, does it seem probable or possible that this combination of imagery, a singular high contrast dot frozen in air, because in addition to being sampled in some way through one of these complicated processes I'm describing, and 1/240th of a second, the exposure time was very short, 1/10,000th, 1/15,000th of a second, freezing it in midair. Something that Gary from Paramount Tactical and Chris Martinson both still don't understand. They're saying I'm an idiot because that should be a streak even at 1/240th of a second. They still don't understand the concept of exposure time. So go get a photography expert and someone who's an expert in how the iPhone takes pictures and get them to explain to me how what I'm saying is wrong. Not some lunkhead who's in his basement using a different camera and a different rangefinder to disprove what I was saying a year ago about a Butler PD body cam capturing an image of a laser in a window. I don't believe I said it was definitely a rangefinder, but even if I did, I said it was a rangefinder or some other kind of laser, probably used for targeting. Remember, it might be signaling a drone, I said, and that the drone would then use that to convert it to a radio signal. Two assholes. And that's what got Palmer Luckey all bent out of shape, that I was saying this is something signaling a drone. So Gary went into his basement and tested a rangefinder on an iPhone. The video I was looking at was not recorded in an iPhone, and he's going around telling everybody I was lying. I certainly wasn't lying. Even if I'm wrong about my assessment, lying implies that I know what I'm saying is false and I'm saying it deliberately. That is not what happened. These guys are all over the place committing civil torts. That's defamation per se, to tell people that I'm lying when I'm not. And when you state it as a matter of fact, not an opinion, that's defamatory. I'm a journalist. People believing what I say is important to my career. My integrity is important to my career. If I were to lie and somebody pointed out, that would be okay. But when I'm not lying and people say that I'm lying, that is defamatory. Anyway, the point is, the dot is frozen in air. Once it appears over a nearly black background. Again, it appears over a nearly black background. The intermediate has it over a gray background. I asked the AI, hey, does that combination of only 3 images present a particular circumstance that might provoke an encoding error? And it said yes. It's actually the perfect storm, I believe, is what the AI said to me, of what might create such an error. So again, I don't deny that this is not the way, it's not the way it's intended to work. I'm saying under certain rare conditions, fast moving, high contrast, very, very small number of pixels in an image where most everything else is not changing, it's particularly problematic for the software algorithm to properly encode and decode what we're looking at there. These guys won't accept that. So people asked me to talk specifically about see, people get mad if I yell at that guy, but he's riding around irresponsibly through the crowd. If somebody gets injured, break your wrist, break your knee, break your elbow, you're going to be in the hospital for a month. You might have pain for the rest of your life because that irresponsible jackass wants to break the law. People want me to talk about this X space. A lot of people listen to that. I mean, again, I think Tyler was extremely disingenuous by luring me into that. We had a phone conversation the night before that began in a very contentious way, where I told him that I felt he was disingenuous because he submitted evidence, and I said, okay, I'm in receipt of your evidence. I have questions about it. I'm going through the verification process right now. My first question was, this doesn't appear to be a screen capture of something related to the metadata of the file. It appears to have come from another phone because it said it was from a Google Photos album, not from an iPhone. And so that caused me to think, well, what else about this might be altered from the original? Additionally, the title of the video was not, your iPhone's going to name it like IMG 90825, something like that. The title had been changed. So right away, as part of the verification process, I wanted to learn what else about it had been changed, if he was purporting to be the guy who had recorded the video or if he had received it from somebody else. That's what I wanted to verify, and he was resisting that. I sent him an email in the morning, which he didn't respond to. I called him, and he didn't answer. I left a message. Then I posted a public a post on X saying that there's been an evidence submission and I'm in the process of trying to verify it. That was a notification to the public. If anybody else was preparing to enter, you know, this is all normal stuff. Almost immediately after I made that public post, he wrote back saying, you know, it's verifiable, verify it from the metadata. So again, he's trying to change the terms and conditions. The terms and conditions do not say that if you enter a submission, you get to decide how it is verified. While it might not have been explicit enough in its detail for Tyler, it did say that one of the requirements was verifiable evidence and that it would be in my sole professional discretion. So it implies at least that there would be a verification process, that this verifiable evidence would have to be verified. And in the process of trying to verify it, he was resisting that, which I found disingenuous and frankly suspicious. So eventually he did call me, and we went through this very contentious phone call that actually ended on what I felt was a positive note. I now believe what happened was he shifted strategy during that call and decided that he would lure me onto an X space that he controlled. He was the host. I didn't put any caveats on that, like we have to do it on my X account or I have to control the space. I let him control it. And he invited all kinds of anonymous, ignorant, hateful, bigoted morons who wanted me to talk about everything from the USS Liberty to Ehud Barak, which don't have, as far as I can see, any direct relevance to this MPEG Dolby Vision Dolby Vision HDR video that was the subject of the space. And that's what I was there for. So I was being insulted. I had to insist at least 4 times by memory that he either throw them off the call or that I would leave the call. And I found that to be incredibly unprofessional. Now he's trying to apologize to me for that. This guy is done. No apologies. Not interested in dealing with him anymore. Look at this Lotus. What is this? That's amazing. Samara. Not directly familiar with that, but boy, that's impressive. Who knows about the Lotus Samara? All kinds of great stuff here in New York City. Anyway, thanks to everyone who's contributed to the evidence bounty. I think it's given us a lot of very useful information, not the least of which is to reveal these social engineering operations that I believe these guys are involved in. That's why they're doing this. They thought they were going to bust me and get this $3,370 by presenting this evidence. And this wasn't my intention, but it worked out even better than I thought. It has brought out the evidence and exposed them as being deceptive, disingenuous scumbags, in my opinion. So thanks for watching. Please sponsor the show on subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You're going to be able to watch tonight's sponsor-exclusive episode of Sunday with Charles Ortel from the residential library in beautiful Penang. You can also do that on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or by following me on X @JG_CSTT and subscribing. It's only $5 a month. Thanks to everybody who's supporting the show and supporting the evidence bounty. Have a great day.